up. So it's not as connected. But, you know, as nice as all this is, I think one of the big things about all of these editorials is it's only taking into account those really politically motivated individuals that are, you know, that take that big step, and that's not everybody in society. I think that's something we forget a lot at James Madison sometimes. But so I kind of looked in closing at some of the more common everyday things, and most notably the internet. You know, looking at that LSAY data, those were students growing up in the age of cable television. That's when CNN is first broadcasting images from the Gulf War into our living rooms and things of that nature. Now we have a generation, you know, even a decade later, that's growing up in the age of the internet, and how this, you know, how this might be helping us to a certain degree. Internet media, of course, allows us to have a lot more control over what we see out of what's out there and what issues we follow. So there's still that vast amount of information we have access to, but we can kind of follow it more selectively. We can pick and choose stories we're interested in. We can join communities we're interested in. And that kind of brings me to the second point of social networking as it's growing. You know, we're the generation of Facebook and MySpace, and this graphic here is an interesting story about that. I found an article talking as I was writing kind of my final draft, or my first complete draft. I found this article in the New York Times about political participation. And how the nature of it's changing, and how we're using more online activism, and was really excited to have found it, and, you know, wrote it up into my draft. And then that afternoon, someone had posted this article on Facebook saying, "Hey everyone, I think this is a really interesting article that's worthy of people's attention." And I posted on an article on Facebook about posting articles on Facebook. So, I mean, this is something that's happening in this generation, and what the net effect of this is not only are we able to kind of carve out a personal space within that impersonal universe, but also the lines between what's personal and what's impersonal are blurring. Like, the mass media is no longer the filter through which we're viewing everything. We're viewing it through personal filters. We're viewing it through the articles and news that our friends want us to see, and that our friends have interesting things to say on. So I think that's a big kind of optimistic change that's happening here. So just for some final thoughts, I think what you're seeing here in general is a new repertoire of social action in this generation, in which we're using this technology that at first overwhelmed us and offered us with so much. We're kind of finally reining it in, and we're using the benefits of it to take this large impersonal world and cut it down to smaller areas where we can make a difference. What this really means, tying it back to, you know, participation, you still got to get people in the voting booth, and for that you have to see political institutions adapting and finding a common ground with this kind of new means of participation to inspire and engage young leaders into participating, into voting. And I think if you're looking at the 2008 election, of course the big story with young voters has been, you know, the candidacy of Barack Obama, and there's been much speculation as to what it is that's got young people so excited about this particular campaign and this particular individual. And I think that if you're looking at all of this, I think this is why. I think that it's a campaign that has this idea that we're not looking for a big we're not looking to take part in a big, broad social agenda. We're looking for you know, institutional leadership that's going to support us in pursuing all of our goals and all of our dreams. I think that message of yes we can has a lot more weight to it than you think at first glance. That this is, you know, not about one national vision, it's about a bunch of smaller individuals making a difference, and, you know, young leaders being empowered and inspired to pursue that. So that's